Hello and welcome. My name is Dawson Church. I'm a best-selling science writer, and I just love the contribution that energy therapies, science, meditation, and all the breakthrough tools we have today are contributing to a new era of personal flourishing and flourishing for people who might otherwise have spent a long time suffering. And one of my collaborators in this wonderful effort is John Dupuy. He is the co-founder and CEO of iAwake Technologies. And iAwake and John produce my favorite meditation tracks. There are lots of images on the web of me with my headphones on, meditating, and it's usually to one of John's tracks. He also came to this through psychology, specifically transpersonal psychology and the integral movement. He's also been working personally and professionally with brainwave entrainment technology for a long, long time, since 2004. And he has a passion for bringing the power of brainwave entrainment technology to the personal growth movement, especially to heal PTSD, addiction, depression, and some of the things that really sap and suppress human potential. He also is focused on the other side of the equation, which is flow, not just digging deep into those things that obstruct our psyches, but then how do we move into peak states? And many of the iAwake tracks actually bring you to those peak states. So I am delighted today to be in dialogue with John, and we're going to have a wonderful time together. John, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Dawson. It's a privilege and an honor. And thank you, everyone, for being here.
Yeah, it's a joy to have you. And so just before we dive into this whole wonderful world of both trauma healing and also peak states, just give us a quick sense of your history in this field.
Oh boy, that's a long question, but I'll give you the short version. Well, I went to the wilderness to find God for myself, and had to leave the cities. I'd been in the Bay Area before that, and I discovered southern Utah, the wilderness. And so we went out there with my wife, and we yandered in southern Utah wilderness for about 6 months. And then we found there were programs that were taking young people out into the wilderness on healing journeys. And we're running kind of low on our, the beans and the rice was getting low at that point. And we were living in the wilderness, and we had a background in psychology. We'd been trained to be therapists and counselors. So we went and to the little programs were there. We were hired on the spot. So we spent the next, at least a decade myself being a wilderness guide. And I noticed that it was pretty apparent that most of the young people that showed up were there because of drugs and alcohol. And some of them were just having periods of abuse, like some of us do when we're young. We drink for a while, or we try drugs and we experiment, and then we go, okay, this is not working for me anymore. I'm tired of feeling like crap in the mornings, and this is interfering with my life, and we move on. We moderate, or we quit, or whatever it is. However, if you are an addict, by definition, that is something that you can't do by yourself. And so I just saw this, and I said, well, what am I going to do? And I'd worked in a treatment program in the Bay Area, Thunder Road. I think it's still going, a very respected treatment program for young people. And I was, as much respect as I had for AA, I just knew that there was a lot of things that were missing, and a lot had been discovered since 1939. I believe that's when the big book of AA was written. God bless those guys. God bless Bill and Bob. So I started trying to put that together, and then I was given the opportunity to design a program, and I decided to do it for young adults, so I wouldn't compete with all my friends that were taking adolescents out, and let the focus be on addiction. And I began to I was convinced that we weren't doing enough, and we just weren't covering all the bases. So I started trying to sense into that and read more. And also, we couldn't find any really good recovery experts that could be wilderness experts at the same time. So lo and behold, I found that I had to fashion myself into the recovery expert. Yikes. So And around that time, I discovered Ken Wilber's integral map. And when I first, it was a paper online, a PDF, what is integral or something like that. And I read it, and it was like the Rosetta Stone for addiction. I just went, oh my God, all these things, just this, that, it all fell together. And I was convinced that other people have to, this is low hanging fruit. It didn't take a great genius to see how applicable this was. And I called up they were in Boulder at the time, the Integral Institute. And I called them, and they were like, is there anybody doing integral? Yeah. They just kind of hung up. And I was so just happy and amazed by my discovery. It didn't even bother me. I didn't get my feelings hurt. I was going, those guys really are busy, and God bless them for that. And eventually I couldn't find anybody else that was doing it. And later I found a paper that had been written about a year before I started this thing. And three people that wrote it disappeared. The aliens took them up or something. I could not trace them down. So there were other people that kind of started looking at it, but I was the one who really grabbed onto it. And through that process of including the body, the mind, the interior life, the relational life, and all the other things that the integral map opens up, I started fashioning a new way to work with addicts. And my own disease, my own distress was not addiction, but depression. So my brother had committed suicide in my living room, and I had a lot of traumatic things that happened to me. And I was getting my butt kicked, and all the tools that I'd learned in graduate school, learning to be a therapist, seemed like having a teaspoon and trying to empty the ocean. The trauma that I was dealing with was so vast, it was crushing me, and it was killing me. It was taking my life. So I had to. It's a long story. It was a long journey, but little by little, I started putting these pieces back together again. And then I started. Well, one way for me to deal with this is live a life of service to others. Okay, that seemed to help with my despair and my darkness. So when I was working with my students and dealing with addiction, I was very clear. I deal with depression, though I'm not an addict. And I told them my story, and they're going, yeah, you're one of us for sure. You get it. You get the depths of that kind of despair. So it was a process of working on myself and finding practices that would transform me into the kind of man that I wanted to be in order to do what I wanted to do. And that was to be of service in the world, to give back, and to make my life mean something. So basically I was working on myself at the same time I was working with students and developing this model for addiction. So that's the not too long story.
Yeah, that's a powerful analogy that they were saying, you're one of us, because when we look at the neurochemistry of addiction, people are addicted actually not to alcohol, cocaine, heroin, whatever it is. They're actually addicted to the neurochemicals that come along with that, especially dopamine. Dopamine is the main reward neurochemical, and they don't realize we can generate dopamine with meditation. So meditation actually raises dopamine by up to 65% if you do it right. And so they're getting those dopamine hits through other kinds of substances, but also things like depression are often neurochemical. And for example, people can get addicted. Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, says that you're actually addicted to this class of stress drugs called catecholamines. And your catecholamines, your cortisol, your adrenaline, all of these drugs, these brain drugs actually are really addictive. And so whether you're using substances or whether it's mood, you can be driving these drugs really high in your brain. And the beautiful thing about what you do now and what we're focused on is that we now realize, as we have sophisticated machinery like high-resolution MRIs, high-resolution EEGs, we are able to measure cortisol, adrenaline, all of these other neurotransmitters and hormones, that we're seeing now that the kinds of stimulation that people get when they use energy therapies or meditation or the kinds of neurofeedback that you can generate through your meditation tracks, they actually change the neurochemistry of the brain, and they change it really fast, and then people get addicted. They can get addicted to the high of feeling that good. So you're still an addict, you're just now addicted to something that isn't killing you.
That's true. And hopefully you can get that through meditation, and that we can kind of get that under control and realize that one of the things that drives addiction and depression is trying to run from the pain instead of just being present with it. And I found that in my own work, interior work, that if I would just be with the darkness, would be with the trauma and the pain, eventually my body would express it and it would clear. And after that, there would be a place of peace and stillness, and often, not always, but often insight into what the issues were and how I should proceed from here.
Yeah, and you know, that question has been researched as to whether you need to go and be with that pain or whether you can skip it and transcend it. And the answer is really clear that you can't skip and transcend it. That's dissociation. And if you dissociate and don't come to grips with what is, then you just stay stuck there, or you suppress it and it becomes the shadow side. So sitting with it and being with it and actually feeling it, research shows, is necessary. There's no shortcut, unfortunately, to that step.
Yeah, and of course, in my practice, I've discovered this. I thought I was really brilliant, and maybe I was in some sense, but there were a lot of people that had gone there before me, like Peter Levine, and the somatic work that I discovered. And later, well, at least I'm not schizophrenic. There's evidence that this is actually real. It was a big help. And to this day, when I'm meditating and the darkness starts to come on, because I am a depressive, it's something I have to be aware of. I just say, thank you, teacher. And I open my heart and I just stay with it. And it comes, it shifts, it does its thing, and then it begins to lift.
Yes. Yeah. How long does that process take for you?
Well, that's a really great question. I would say about 10 to 15 minutes, unless it's something really big. And then sometimes I have to do extended periods of meditation, like a 2-hour or a 3-hour, on my Saturday or something, and make it a, ongoing process. And sometimes I've found that I seem to release maybe 25% of it, and the message, that's good enough for right now. And then you come back. So it takes work, but it releases gradually. Or sometimes it goes, it's like the dawn. First, there's a false dawn. You think you see light coming over the horizon, and you think, well, maybe I just really want it to be day and I'm imagining this. And after a while you start, no, it's actually getting lighter and the world begins to be illuminated. And that's kind of how it is. It just gradually lifts, and finally you're just there. You're open and you're free again. And you're grateful and humble and connected to the world and to your deepest self.
Wow. And I always mentally in my mind have a picture of a fork when I come face to face with a story like yours, John. And the fork is the John and his life that's found these tools and resources, and the John and what his life looks like who hasn't found them. And I know, for example, from epigenetics that those two Johns are going to diverge physically, and that the states of consciousness that they reach in are going to produce different epigenetic tags on their genes, and they'll have different health outcomes. They'll have different longevity. They'll have all kinds of differential gene expression, and it happens fairly gradually at first. So, whether you meditate one day and have a good meditation and move to that space one day, or whether you do it for 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days will move the needle a little bit, tiny little bit. 2 or 3 weeks, move the needle quite a bit. 2 or 3 months, move the needle a lot. 2 or 3 years will move the needle immeasurably, and there'll be a big divergence gradually between those two Johns. So I'm glad that now we have the John of service, the John of iAwake, the John of offering insights to other people. And also that's going to be a much healthier and happier version of John as well.
Yes, on a live John, I don't think I would have survived. Quite
Yeah.
frankly, I'd have gone the way of my brother. And the only thing that kept me from killing myself at some point was just I didn't want to do that to my parents. One suicide is enough, right? It's way more than enough. And so that kept me on. It was like, God, kill me, take me home, but I can't do it myself. And so I think Spirit honored that, and it began to be revealed in it. And also, it's not just the interior meditation work, but it's also exercise,
Yes,
and diet, and the search for wisdom. In other words, there's so much available on the internet and books and all of this stuff like no other generations ever had access to. So we have to make choices, strategic choices about what we're going to fill our hearts and minds with. And I find when I focus on wisdom and learning and knowledge that will help me be a better person, and that we help me be of more service, that I'm also happier. And you have to pick and choose even the music that you listen to, or the books that you read, or the company that you keep. And of course, in life in general, if you are trying to achieve, I want to be a wise man who is a service to my people, then I have to find relationships and friendships and communities with people that will support me in that quest and not drag me down. And in addiction, if you think you're going to stay sober and hang out with people who are not sober, it's just not going to last at all. So whether it's cessation of these addictive behaviors or substance, or it's the aspirations to become something beyond what you currently are and to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be as your gift back to life, your gift back to God, then it takes similar strategies.
Yeah, and focus on all those areas: exercise, nutrition, social support, social awareness, media. And you can make choices about all of these things, and make choices not to indulge in the ones that don't support you. And this thing about people is interesting. I heard Ram Dass say, like 40 years ago, he said, you don't need to collect people, you can let them go. And I was like, wow, I was so focused on having friendships and just clinging to them. And I began to realize at a certain point, post Ram Dass, that I needed to let people go sometimes. And it became a part of the journey. Afterwards, it becomes part of the energetic journey too, because as your energy changes, as you're lifting that burden, as you're changing behavior, then naturally you're drawn to different people and you resonate with different people. This whole idea of resonance is so interesting, that the resonant fields are one of the really pervasive characteristics of nature. And the earth has its resonance, 7.8 hertz. That's also the resonance of healing. That's also the resonance that a lot of your meditations take people into, that theta band of the healing frequency. And so resonance is a part of this. And after a while, you find yourself resonating with different people. And then there might be people too in your life at a certain point where you have to say, I need to not be around that person, because that person does not support the kind of person I want to be. And it's interesting how we can cling sometimes to relationships that aren't serving us for a long time just because we've had them for a long time. And so that letting go of those people who are helping you stay stuck.
Yeah, and that's the same thing about organizations. If you're in an organization, religious or otherwise, that doesn't allow any honorable way for you to leave, you're starting to get a little culty there, and you're starting to get controlling, and there's something not healthy going on. So we have to be, there has to be ways for us to part. And I think we are not alone in this quest. I do believe in God and a higher power and a greater purpose, and that comes through us at our best moments. And when we're being healers, boy, that feels like absolute grace for me when it's coming through, or either as receiving it or as it coming through me. It's big. So the right people show up, and the old cliche, the teacher shows up when the student is ready. Well, that's also true, and the right people show up. And if you I don't know if we're just putting out some kind of energy into the universe that it begins to attract like-minded people. But if we're on the path, we'll find the people that can support us. And they are essential. It's very important.
Yeah. In fact, I've been getting knee deep into research now on people who break through to what's called enlightenment, or the peace that passes understanding, or fundamental well-being in some ways of classifying it. They actually become finders. They're no longer seekers. They're actually in that state semi-permanently, predominantly. That's the predominant state, is in that state. And interestingly enough, it's often catalyzed by contact with somebody who's there. So they'll go and see a famous healer, or they'll go see somebody who's really at an elevated level, and just being around that person for a while. Again, the resonance factor is able to pick up what's resonant with them and then amplify that, and then they either then or subsequently are able to move to that kind of a place. So it really does shift us. Research just shows that people who make that transition from being seekers to finders actually usually immediately before that, or soon before that, have had an experience with a great healer, a great leader, a great transformational teacher. Something happened, and that they were in the field of that person, and that is associated with their subsequently breaking through. So yeah, people we're around are super important. And then other things you mentioned, diet, exercise, and then I love what you do now with iAwake too, because simply you can get to those brainwaves alone, but it's way easier to have a guided track bringing you there. Yeah, and your tracks are just remarkable. Just share with us how you came to learn about brainwave entrainment technology and progress with iAwake and go to where you are today.
Yeah, well, a great question. Back in the days when I was working, just starting to work with addicts and design programs, we knew that step 11 in AA says, sought through prayer and meditation to increase our conscious contact with God, seeking only his will and the power to carry it out. And so that was built in to the DNA of the modern recovery movement, but there weren't a lot of people that were meditating and praying. It might be, Lord, help me to stay sober today. And at the end of the day, thank you for keeping me sober, which is nothing wrong with that at all, but it's not deep, contemplative, transformative practice. So I knew meditation was essential. So I began to meditate and try to get my students to meditate, and we weren't doing a very good job of it. And I had this kind of on again, off again, gone again relationship with meditation over the years, because it really takes a long time to start feeling the benefits. And, if you're an addict or you're in deep depression, you need relief more quickly than that. Ken Wilber said that he meditated for 5 years, 2 hours a day before he felt any changes happening.
Wow.
Now that is superhuman effort, which I was not capable of. So that was my puzzle. How do I get this meditation thing to kick in for myself and for my students? And that's when I discovered binaural beats, which is the kind of the basic technology of brainwave entrainment. And I ordered some and started listening to it. And I had, early on, I had a class 5 spiritual experience, a boom, non-dual. And I'm a little part of this everything. And I'm like a little hologram of it, but I am still there. And it also in that initial insight, it says, but your ego and your little self is very important. It's part of God too. So don't neglect that. And I went, okay. So it wasn't like, I'm nothing. The self is just, not real and all this. It's like, you got to pay attention to that stuff too. Meanwhile, you are everything. And so I was just, holy cow, I've been doing this for 2 weeks maybe, and I'm enlightened. Well, let's say I had an opening. Okay. It gave me a preview, and it blasted me into the section that I realized how powerful this technology was. So I started using it, and I went about, after that big initial opening, I had about 8 months of powerful releasing of trauma. And I would be just sitting there. And sometimes my body would just be vibrating like that. My wife would watch me and go, oh my God, it's going through something. And somehow through that opening, I received the intuition that by being present with this stuff was my way out. And sure enough, it got me through it. And it was all of these things that piled up on me, at one time. It just crushed me. And a Native American elder said, oh, your initiation. Well, yeah, my initiation. So a lot of us have addiction could be a powerful initiatory process. So it ain't all bad. You go to hell, but if you come out of hell, you come back with gifts for the rest of us. And that's what my breaking process was. And that was really when I truly deepened my understanding of my path and my gifts in life, and that I did have something to live for. And if I would just cultivate it and get out of the way, that I could do good in the world. And I heard the other day, I think it comes from Taoism, and I'm paraphrasing this, but if you learn through great effort to achieve effortlessness, you've got it. You understand. So yeah, I can do that. And also a musician, Dawson. So I really get it, and just, I played the guitar since I was very young, but I just started playing electric lead about 12, 15 years ago. So, and I just, dun, 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 dun. And eventually it got to the point when the switch is on and when God is coming through, I'm being played. I am the instrument, and that's the magic of music. And they're saying now that music even predates language in human history. So that's another way, talking of energy. What is the magic of music? Well, it makes us feel alive. It changes our state. It's transcendent. It's the blues. That's my main focus now, is playing the blues. And I find that as a great healing journey of expressing sadness. Somebody said the blues is sad music that makes you feel good, kind of thing. And yeah, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, and what these things all have in common is they put you in a state of flow. Meditation puts you in flow. That music is putting you in flow. Peak states put you in flow. Time in nature puts you in flow. There are all these ways of being in flow. And actually, what you described there with that initial non-dual experience in Sufism, that's called the glimpse. The Sufis call that the glimpse of heaven, or the glimpse of the other side, or the glimpse of the all that is. And that then is powerfully transformative. Andrew Newberg, the great neuroscientist, says that in his book called How Enlightenment Changes Your Brain, says that if you have that experience one time, it so disrupts the way the brain works that it never settles back down into the same pattern ever again. So one time, one non-dual experience like that, he says, is able to permanently shift brain activity. Hopefully you'll then move through it. And then the next thing you did, interestingly enough, was that trauma release piece. And that is so incredibly important. And like, I teach EFT primarily because I know that if you close your eyes and try and meditate and you're traumatized, all you do is drop back into memories of the past, fear of the future, all these ways other than being in the present moment. So that trauma release piece is absolutely essential to forward movement. So you have to do the trauma release. And then when you get far enough along with that, you can start to go to that elevated place in consciousness over and over and over again. So that glimpse is good to let you know that it exists, but then you have to go through the underworld.
You do, absolutely.
Yeah, and then release that, and then you can start to cultivate those states on a more consistent basis. So we teach meditation to bring you to the mountaintop, and then EFT to excavate all of that stuff that stops you from getting to the mountaintop. Or if you get to the mountaintop without having done work on all that trauma, then we've seen plenty of spiritual teachers where their unhealed trauma becomes the dark side, and they become abusers, molesters, swindlers, all kinds of people at the mountaintop. But unless they've healed that trauma, it becomes the shadow.
And the rest of they themselves hurt their own souls, and they hurt the people that are looking to them for guidance. And as a story often told. Yeah, so you got to do your own work. And just because you have those moments of clarity that you realize the united nature of things, and that somehow it's very, very, very good. It's not just everything's jello and you're part of it. No, this unity is brilliant and beautiful and beyond description. And somehow it's like it justifies and redeems all of history and all suffering and all things. It's like, wow, at the heart of this, there's something really amazing going on. And from that place, and what you were saying about flow, I think in meditation, in contemplation, in the wilderness, in the stillness, once we go through all the stuff, we get there. That is one of our ways of experiencing the divine, the ultimate. But the other way is in motion, is in creativity, is in flow. So we get to have our cake and eat it too. In other words, and one informs the other. It's from the stillness of my heart that I am able to go out and reach out in the world, whether it's teaching or writing or playing music or playing tennis or doing anything else I love. You know, when it starts coming through, it's like, hey, the world makes sense. And it's not an intellectual thing. It's just, you know it, and you're just watching it come through. And the aftertaste is really good. And one feels humbled and grateful and like one belongs in the universe, and it's okay that you're here, and the universe is glad you're here, and it's using you. And that's amazing.
Wow. The universe does use you, and yeah, it does extend to all of your daily activities after a while. So initially it's a peak you hit in meditation, and it's something that happens in meditation. Later on, it starts to extend outward. A professor called Teresa Amabile at Harvard has done studies showing you enter that state for a while, like an hour, and the effects in terms of brain function extend 48 hours later. You get 47 hours of flow and better creativity, better problem solving ability as a result of your 1 hour meditation. So it does extend everywhere else. And then it becomes part of what you do in service. And so you then are just delighted to share it and make it part of what you bring to everyone else. I'd love to actually, two questions. First of all, how would you describe that state when you have popped into that sense of oneness with the all that is? So you meditated for your 15 minutes or maybe 2 hours on the weekend, and now you are in that state. Some traditions call it the great silence, the void, the all that is, the Tao, heaven. There are all these ways of characterizing those elevated states of consciousness you get to in meditation. What is it like for you?
First of all, it doesn't feel like the void in the Western existential meaning of the word, you know, just vast nothingness. It's vast everythingness. And it's very loving. And at the heart of it is love. And any claims of enlightenment or spiritual growth or progress that doesn't include compassion and love seems to miss the point. And Jesus once said, if that light be darkness, how great is that darkness? You know, so, and it fills me with peace and the deep, profound okayness of my existence and the universe. And it's all okay. And no matter what happens, it's gonna be okay, because there is only God and thou art that. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of those things, and you sense them, you feel them. There is infinite love there, and I know one of the reasons I'm so motivated to help people meditate and learn to meditate is because when people feel lonely or disconnected, which they can easily do, just, you know, like right now, recently we had a neighbor who died. He died and his wife's alive still, and she doesn't have a lot of friends, doesn't have a lot of people. But if she's meditating and she's aware of the all that is, and wherever the love there, then she has everything. She has all this connection. And so it is transformative to be aware of that love and know that everything is love, and that everything is fundamentally okay. It's a whole different framing for your life than the usual framing of fight or flight, of survival, of struggle. And it puts us into a whole different space. It also engages totally different brain regions. And in my book, This Brain, I talk about the enlightenment network, which we can measure in the brain. It's composed of 4 different circuits, and that it takes us out of the survival brain. So whole different set of brain regions are active. And so now you're anchoring that love, that sense of wellness. You're anchoring it neurologically. It's not just something that's going on in your mind or in your consciousness as an abstraction. It's literally the activation of neural pathways in your brain and the reinforcement, because as those neurons fire together, they wire together, and those parts of the brain become more capable and more functional. And so with Ken Wilber, 5 years, 2 hours a day. Yeah, that's not something most people are going to stick with. So if we can use something like meditation, a quick meditation, a guided meditation, or those binaural beats to bring people to that point quickly, and then anchor that in their experience regularly, then we start to activate those neural pathways, and it doesn't have to take so long.
No, and it's Diane Hamilton, a friend of mine, a Zen. She's a Roshi now, by the way. She's a Zen teacher. Just found that out. And she said that a practice is the cultivation through repetition. So if you want to cultivate those experiences and then ground them and deepen them and make them part of your everyday process as we go through this life and we go through our journeys in our bodies and our families and the world, you have to work on it. You have to practice.
Now, I know that you've had challenges lately. I know you got COVID during the pandemic. I know you've had some health challenges. And how does having that anchoring in the infinite affect the way you deal with local, just daily, regular issues of being a human being, having a body, and living in the world?
That's a great, I did have COVID and got really ill, and Pam thought, my wife thought I was going to die, and I didn't. Came back, and in March, it'll be 4 years. I had a massive heart attack. Ironically, I was leaving the gym in Grand Junction, Colorado, a place I'd work out when I travel through there, and wow, right there, just this tremendous pain. And I didn't know a lot about heart attacks. I'd never had one, but I knew it was a heart attack. It wasn't one of these subtle things, maybe I had indigestion. No, it was a heart attack. And the first thing I thought about was my dog back in the motel room. So I didn't want to die and have my dog abandoned. So I drove back to the hotel room, 3.8 miles, and had some old guy going really slow in front of me. And I'm just like, got to the hotel room, and the key didn't quite work, or it wasn't a key, it was a card. And I finally got in to my dog, said, okay, my dog's going to be okay. And I called 911, and bam, they came, and there was a cardiac center right near there. Saved my life. Almost any place else on that journey, if it would have happened, I wouldn't be here. So they were able to put a splint in. And but I don't remember. I was scared for my dog being abandoned, but it was like, if this is my time, it's okay. I wasn't scared. And when they put the splint in, I was in the emergency room, and all of a sudden, okay, I'm gonna make it. And I just said to the doctor and his group, thank you guys, you saved my life. I really, really appreciate that. So I think those experiences eliminated the fear, and because sometimes something like that happens and you're so traumatized by it, the fear, any moment you could just die, right? I mean, it's true for everyone, but when you have that as an actual experience, you're no longer in denial about it. It can be very traumatic. So I think that really helped. And then for about 5 hours after I was in ICU, I just felt great clarity and great intellectual clarity and emotional and spiritual. I said, maybe I'm going to die now, because I hear sometimes before people die, they have these openings, and I didn't. But then after that, it felt like a mule had kicked me in the chest, and I had to go through the whole recovery process. But 2 weeks after the heart attack, I was back on the tennis court. Maybe I could only play for 10 minutes, but getting back and I work out every day and do yoga and meditate and play tennis whenever I can. I have a teacher now. Teachers really help, by the way. I played 30 years. Oh my God. Just making it up or seeing what I could see Roger Federer or one of the greats on television do it. I sucked. It was terrible. So when I got here to Louisiana, where I am, we came to care for, support my wife's aging mother. I was able to have a teacher, and I just totally reconstructed my game. And for about a year, I couldn't do anything. I was just like, oh gosh. And then it started getting better. And now I'm playing at a much higher level. So yeah, the fact that I already had a physical exercise path in place got me right back into the game. And I've had, I think, 3 or 4 stress tests since then. And they say it looks fine. They put you up to and so I think it made my heart stronger. I think my heart was strong enough to survive that. I don't know how I did it. That collapsed artery completely collapsed, driving across town and trying to rescue my dog. And it kept pumping until people could be there to open it up again. And like I said, yeah, it did the fear and still, it's not just all happy, you still suffer, you're still human.
Right.
Still read the news and about what our brothers and sisters are going through, and not just the human brothers and sisters, but all our brothers and sisters, all the life forms. And that can be very painful, but it gives you a way of using that as energy for depth and growth and compassion. And you can still, get to be your ego self and everything, but you're not quite as lost in it anymore. You can snap out of it. I'm sorry, I forgot. And so, yeah, I think I don't think I would have survived without it. It made all the difference.
And you lose your fear of death. You just know that fundamental wellness, that fundamental wholeness, fundamental wellness of the universe, regardless of whether your physical body lives or dies. It's very powerful to live not fearing death. I know yesterday morning I kissed my wife before she went off to go and do an art project. She teaches art and she does art. And so I just kissed her and I thought, either I can kiss her thinking about what's going to happen in my day up ahead, or I can kiss her and be fully present, as though, imagine if I knew I was going to die today, or she was going to die today, how would I kiss her? So I decided to kiss my wife that way that morning, yesterday. And then I decided to kiss my wife that way every single day, as though this was our last day. You never do know. And it's powerful to then be in the moment. It's powerful to not fear death and live a life where, we all have our bodies all have an expiration date, and you don't know when yours is. And you just go ahead and live fully, being that being, incarnate in your mind and heart and body, regardless of what's going on around you. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but you love being
here. And I think I think the fear might be that somehow I haven't done all that I'm supposed to do. No, I haven't fixed that broken relationship. I haven't extended compassion to that person. I haven't dealt my own wounding about this, or I haven't written the book that I'm supposed to write, or sing the song that I was supposed to sing, or something like that. So there's a check-in, and one of my daily prayers is, okay, God, it's me again. You're probably tired of hearing me, but I'll shut up quickly. Yeah. Is there anything I'm supposed to be doing, releasing, confronting, helping, anything? And if I missed one of the categories, show me that too. And I'll shut up now. And I'm sure he goes, thank God. And then I said, that's one of my questions. I always offer up, how can I be a better man? How can I respond to the world in a way that makes a difference, tips it toward love in this time of great change and evolution that we're going through?
And that's an open-ended question to the universe, because there are ways I know I can do that, and then there are the unknown ways. So you're open to being used by the universe in any way, and you don't even know the ways that that might happen. I know that when I first began, I made a commitment to meditating every day in 2000, and I just made the commitment to not skipping a day, just meditating every single day. And I've hardly skipped a day since that day I made that decision. And all kinds of things have shifted for me, all kinds of things have changed. And so it's powerful to open yourself to the universe and say, I'm here, I'm available. And when we do that, then the universe has a way of saying, okay, there's somebody down there who's paying attention, who's showing up. We can really work with that person. And the other point you mentioned was your tennis game and training. And one of the fun things about, I'm doing a series of events now with people, and one of them was with Donna Eden. And with Donna, I was saying back in 1989, 1991, I was writing this magazine called Whole Life Times. And I was saying that energy healing and these states are a gift, that they aren't trainable. And then people like Donna Eden came along, people like Eric Pearl came along, and all of these energy healers, and they made them trainable. And so now we can literally take people who know nothing about energy healing, and we put through a program in 6 months or a year and a half, and they come out the other end and they can do it. And so there are all of these ways now. We don't have to go and spend 10 years in a monastery and do 10,000 hours and take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. We don't have to go and not be in the world and cloister ourselves in the desert or the Himalayas. We can be right here and then be effective and then learn techniques that are going to move us there really quickly. So what I'm so awed by with my work training people in EFT and meditation, by things like iAwake, by what you do, that we have a body of knowledge and a body of work we just didn't have, as you were saying, in 1939 or in 1839. And we can now bring people to this point of clearing trauma and then reaching those elevated states quickly. It doesn't need to take 10,000 hours. We've seen people hooking them up to an EEG. We've seen people get there in a week of intense work like this. And that training brings them to a whole new state of brain function. And then they can get to that state again pretty much in 5 minutes after that. So I'm so grateful we have all of these techniques now. And I just know that you and I are going to be sharing and talking and working together for a long time, because we totally share the same goal here. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, to everyone who's shared this time with us, thank you so much for being here. So appreciate you. Know that what John and I have been sharing about is a universal experience, that experience of being one with the universe is available to everyone. What we're saying about trauma healing is really important, that trauma healing is non-negotiable. You need to go through this. Whatever method you use to release trauma, it is necessary. But you'll have those glimpses along the way of something transcendent. And then as you let go of those old habits, those addictions, those patterns, those behaviors, those worldviews, those core beliefs that are holding you back, as you tap them away, as you meditate, as you center yourself, as you experience them, and then, as John was saying, his body would shake with releasing them, then you can start to move to these elevated states of consciousness and really experience all the love of the universe. So I think, John, I'll speak for you when I say that we know that everybody here today and listening is able to experience that love of the universe. And I think I can speak for you, John, in saying that's what John and I want most for you.
Yes, and thank you, Dawson. Your eloquence and learning and wisdom are really holy, and it is flow. There's an example right there. That it's happening.
Living in love every day. What a way to be. Thanks again, John.
You're welcome.
Every blessing. Bye.